moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I am so excited. People are like, "You're going to the theater? Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to the theater."
I mean, I feel safer at the theater with everyone with their masks on and like a really big room that's like well ventilated versus being in like a small restaurant where everyone has their masks off.
You're hyper aware now, sitting and looking around, at everybody going, "Yeah, that guy's probably got it."
I know. Don't you look at other people's disease vectors? Because I totally do.
That makes me a little bit hesitant. That's the only thing that makes me hesitant about going to the theater is that concessions are still open. So people have that excuse if they want to take their mask off in the theater. Oh, I'm eating, I can't wear my mask. And I don't hold anything against, you eat your popcorn and then you eat your popcorn. But, I can see that turning into abuse of the privilege.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, please. Yeah.
I think it definitely depends on like the clientele at the theater. Now like for Regal, they said in their email that ushers will make sure people are complying. But the question is, are the ushers then going to be put in the position where if somebody doesn't comply, where they've got to drag somebody out of the theater or disrupt the movie while somebody's arguing? I would hope that you would ask somebody to put their mask on and they would. But as we've seen, I saw a guy tackle a Walmart greeter who asked him to put a mask on. So,
we will be talking about it big time next week because I think that it's just part of our imperative to tell people either we felt safe and that, if you so inclined, go to the movies.
Now, New Mutants is not on many people's radars, maybe except for ours. Because,
no, there's a fair amount of people who want to see it.
Nothing to the degree of a movie like Tenet. What I'm really curious about is what's going to happen with these showings of Tenet. Are these showings going to sell out? Is Tenet going to be like the theater savior that everyone is hoping it will be?
But it'll take twice as long for it to make like a decent blockbuster showing because only half the theater is available.
Yeah. Well, since we're already talking about this, are we just into the show now?
Yeah.
Have people just been listening to us at this point? It doesn't matter. So welcome everyone to the show. This is what we do before we record and after we record.
We talk about the movies before, during, and after the show.
So obviously we're very passionate about it. But
right. And as you probably heard, we are going to see New Mutants. We'll be reviewing New Mutants.
I want to figure out how I can do a live video on Instagram because
don't hold your breath because it's still 6 days away before we see this thing, and how many times?
Don't do my ticket's already on my phone. My ticket's already on my phone. Don't you even tell me that we're going to get hit by a meteorite.
We're going to drive to Danbury and they're going to turn us away at the door.
Yeah,
no, Fox pulled it. Fox pulled it. Sorry.
Fox pulled it. They took my money and ran. But that's, so let's talk about that a little bit, which is the fact that Jim and I are both in New York. There is not a theater open, even though you keep seeing all these promotions. Regal's going to reopen August 21st. Whereas nothing around us whatsoever. We have to jump the border and go to Connecticut like bootleggers. Friggin' Dukes of Hazzard running moonshine over the border.
So we can tailgate. Bring your banjo to
there
the
you
showing,
go.
Jeff.
Ding, 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 ding. My Coors Light. No, they probably.
I know. I was reluctant to even tell you guys that I had tickets because, the movie theaters are open here. And I was like,
yeah, but you've been dangling that in front of our face for weeks now.
I'm like,
Apparently, Chicago's the cool place.
I got tickets to see a movie. Are you guys going to be able to see it?
No. We figured out a way. We just bought out the whole theater, which wouldn't be that hard. That may be why some of those movies are sold out.
So yeah, let's talk about this. We obviously bought our seats online through AMC, through the website. Fandango, I did. Did you go direct
I went right
to
through the AMC, yeah.
Okay. It's an IMAX theater, so it's bigger than your average.
Yep.
And I was actually the first one to buy seats. It didn't look like there was anything that was unopened to me in terms of seating. So I chose 2 aisle seats, and I was very interested to see what Jeff saw when he got on, because I wanted to see what the berth was around the seats that I bought. And he said that he saw my seats, and every seat around them was X'd out.
Yep. Yeah. It's like Hollywood Squares. Paul Lynn for the win, please.
So they are sticking to their guns. So at least nobody's going to be sitting directly next, in front, or behind me.
Right. And you can pre-order your concessions. There was a whole thing on the app itself, which is you can pre-order your concessions with almost curbside pickup. You just, give your name or whatever, and you just pick up your stuff as you go in.
Yep. Same for the Regal, because my Regal is open here.
Yeah.
And when I went to buy my tickets for New Mutants, the whole back row was X'd out, which to me meant that there was a party of at least 2 people, because it's a theater that has recliner seating, but the recliners are quite large to begin with.
Right.
So then if they X off the recliners,
yeah, that's
like
huge. They're like 6 feet across. They're monstrous.
They're really big, and then there's a lot more leg room in front, obviously, because there has to be room for the recliner, and then for someone to walk in front of it if they need to leave the theater. So there's automatically more social distance space in a recliner theater. I bought my tickets, and I bought like 2 seats in the 5th row, because they only have like 6 rows. I think one of them, the biggest one, has like 8 rows. So there's less seating in there to begin with.
Hopefully they're wiping down those buttons that you can put your feet up and warm the seat if you so need to.
I do that anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
like in a non-pandemic situation, I carry antibacterial wipes everywhere I go.
You've been preparing for this your whole life, right?
I know, it's like germaphobes of the world. Do you
take it to the nth? Do you have gloves too? Do you bring gloves?
I do not bring gloves. I wipe the armrest. I wipe the buttons. I wipe the tray, because there's a tray for your food.
Right.
And then I clean my own hands before I eat, and then I clean them again after, which I think is good, like hygiene practice anyway. So.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be around me. I'm not quite that cleanly. You should see my hands some days when I take lunch. I'm like, if I only had a napkin, that's what would be great. So I think I just build up a tolerance to dirt. So, all right. So let's get into, let's talk. What are we going to talk about today? Let's go with the top subject, and then we'll get into some news, which we're already in.
I don't want to paint this as a treading water episode, but we're kind of trying to get through this week before the new movies start coming out. Yeah. So we're forced to look back into the past again. So what we did was we tried to mix it up a little bit. So we enjoyed our summer series so much, where we each picked a year what was a great summer for us personally, and we picked 2 movies from that summer from those 3 years. So figured, why don't we continue that every once in a while? So we went all the way back to 1950, bringing it up to, 2018, 2019. And we put it on our Wheel of Chance app every single year between 1950 and 2019. And for this episode, we spun the wheel. We came up with the year 1970. We all chose after looking at what came out that year. And then again with the wheel, we whittled it down to 2 movies.
It was those 2
movies. Yeah, 1970 didn't have a lot.
It was not a good year for movies.
Those 2 movies are going to be The Aristocats, the Disney animated feature, and Arnold Strong's debut. You may know him better as Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hercules in New York,
which I guess I thought came. I didn't realize that this came out long before.
If you've never seen
Iron.
Hercules in New York, you may want to do yourself a favor and just search for it on Tubi or what have you.
It is on Tubi.
It is just a bizarre time capsule of, more so than anything else, of 1969 when it was made. But we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Right. So we're doing news?
We're doing news.
All right. Yeah. We were already in the news because we talk movies all the time, and we brought up the idea that Tenet was the savior here, but Russell Crowe beat you to it. Russell Crowe is top of the box office this week. They said screw it. They're not waiting for Mulan. They're not waiting for Tenet. They dumped Unhinged, and right now they're looking at $4.5 million over the 3-day weekend. So it's making money.
That's not bad for what I would consider.
I think they're talking almost 8 with the international.
What do they consider this like a low budget horror type movie? He plays like an unhinged road ranger.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a cross between Falling Down with Michael Douglas and The Hitchhiker. Guy has a bad day, cuts off someone in traffic, and now the guy stalks him. I don't really know too much about this movie other than Russell Crowe is in it, but it's making money, so people are going to the theaters.
I think the interesting thing here is that not every market was open, obviously.
No.
And it's a lower profile movie than something like Tenet. So I think that would be very heartening to theater owners and to to studios to say, okay, people are going back to the movies. They're really hungry for new content.
Things. Yeah. And I think it was playing not only in theaters but also in the drive-ins.
Mm-hmm.
So that factors in large. I mean, I know the drive-in is not. It's a great alternative. Some of these they're like little pop-up drive-ins. In
Walmart parking lots and
but still, if you
we've got 2 permanent drive-ins in my area here, and they are not playing first-run movies. They're playing bankable old family classics because I guess they're trying to pack in there, and it makes sense, that they would forego newer movies for things that are sure things. Well, but they are playing that on Unhinged at AMC. I noticed showings when we bought tickets for New Mutants, but we were just talking about this, and you may have heard a little bit of it. They're not playing Peninsula, which is the sequel
to Train to Busan.
And of course, Christina in Chicago has access to everything. Including this, so she'll be singing, and that's why I'd like to be covering that, but we unfortunately until Jeff and I can see it, we won't be.
Well, so even go to the fact that when we were trying to find a theater to go see New Mutants, I discovered that 2 of my theaters in White Plains are permanently closed now.
Really?
Permanently?
Permanently.
They're not like big Regal AMC type places.
No, the Greenberg one was pretty. I got Cinemark. Which I think owns Regal.
There's some Cinemarks here.
It's a massive. It was probably a 10-12 screener, and I've gone there before. Out of desperation. It's not that far removed from my house, but they are permanently closed.
I'm really surprised that the AMC isn't showing Peninsula, just because there's not a lot of new movies out, and obviously, like the success of Parasite shows that foreign films can be money makers, and Train to Busan already has a huge following in this country, if for no other reason than because it's available on Netflix and people can watch it easily. So I'm just surprised that they're not showing it, but I won't spoil it for you guys.
Thank you.
I promise.
I have yet to see the first one, so.
Yeah. And it may be available.
I heard there's zombies on a train. Is that true?
Snakes on a plane, zombies on a train.
Yeah.
I am getting sick.
You almost made me spit my coffee out.
I want Samuel L. Jackson to be in this movie.
This. Yikes. All right. Let's move on, because one of the other news items is that Olivia Wilde has been tapped by Sony to direct an unnamed Marvel female-centric movie. Let the speculation.
But it's
Spider-Man,
Sony. It's going to be a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But is it going to be? I mean, I guess Spider-Woman has been around for a while. Jessica Drew was the main, but you got Spider-Gwen.
Yep.
You could pull a Spider-Gwen.
You got Black Cat.
I think that they do have a Black Cat movie in development, because I said the same thing. I'm trying to go down the list of like female characters in the Spider-Man universe, and it looks like they may already have something in development with Black Cat. I didn't see Booksmart, but it's got really good reviews.
It's good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love seeing, obviously, not just because they're female centric stories, but I love seeing that these studios are now actively tapping female directors for these higher profile
this entire
projects.
movie is female driven. Amy Pascal is going to be producing, Rachel O'Connor is executive producing, and then you got Katie Silberman will be writing it.
Right. And
so
kind of similar to what we were talking about with Nia DaCosta and Captain Marvel too. So really happy to see like just more representation in terms of like women getting to lead like these higher profile projects.
Yeah.
That does show that Sony is still deeply entrenched in the Spider-Man universe. So
too much. Listen, there's too much to be made. As long as they allow Marvel to kind of just give their 2 cents with these last 2 Spider-Man movies, they've really hit it on the head. So
yeah, I think what they're trying to do is create something so eventually they won't need Marvel's help. Look, the Into the Spider-Verse was amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was phenomenal.
So I think it's possible. It would just be sad if the movies didn't tie into each other anymore. But I think Sony now, over time, even with the Sam Raimi ones, as long as you have a filmmaker that knows what he's doing, that knows the material, then you're in safe hands.
Except for Spider-Man 3. I don't know what he was thinking. He went off the rails. He went off the rails. So anyways, the rest of the news cycle has really been eaten up by DC. If you don't know, DC had a 24-hour online con called DC Fandom. Mm-hmm. And they dumped a whole bunch of information. The Batman, Matt Reeves, the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, they dropped the trailer for that. And it looks like it's, from what I'm reading, I mean, it's very like old world noir. He's saying that, his influences were the French Connection and Chinatown, Taxi Driver. So it kind of has that gritty Joker look and feel to it. But once again, it's just another guy in a suit. So I don't know. But that's coming out October of next year, 21st. Ben Affleck has been confirmed that he will be playing Batman, as well as Michael Keaton in the Flash movie, which is set for June of 22. So obviously there's some time travel involved in that. Multiverses, whatever.
Right.
Who else? Dwayne Johnson revealed his Black Adam costume. Shazam 2 is coming out in November of 22. And they dropped the title, which is called Fury of the Gods. I don't know enough about Shazam to know which gods are angry, but that first one was pretty fun.
Isn't the little worm guy going to be in Shazam too?
I would assume, as well as Woody Harrelson.
That was Venom.
That was Venom.
Very similar ending scene though, but that was Venom.
You're right. That was Venom.
I had to think for a second. Was Woody Harrelson at the end of?
He looked like Sideshow Bob there with that hair. Yeah. You're right. It was the Venom. Aquaman 2. James Wan, I guess, is still going to direct, but he's saying that it's going to take a more serious tone, which I'm not. I mean, I think we kind of crapped a little bit all over Aquaman at the time.
Yes, but it didn't especially our third member at the time walked out. He didn't even say.
That's true. He did. Yes. But it didn't take itself too seriously. And on subsequent reviewings, I've learned to kind of appreciate it. But there are people out there who absolutely love it because it didn't take itself as seriously as some of these other superhero movies.
Especially for a DC movie.
Yeah. Make of that what you will. That's set for December of 22. But somewhere in between August of 21, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is dropping. And I tend to think that this will not be as serious. It's kind of a sequel / reboot. He's only bringing 1 or 2 of those characters back over. I know Margot Robbie's reprising her role as Harley Quinn. They recast Will Smith with Idris Elba as
the same character.
Deadshot. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the one weird thing, which is they're doing a prequel TV show that's tied in with this Batman. It's called Gotham PD, and it's going to.
Didn't they already do that?
Well, there was Gotham.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is going to
They
be
just added PD, and now it's a
Gotham
brand new
PD.
show.
And check this out. This is about as tone deaf as you can possibly get, because it's a prequel that's going to focus on corrupt cops. You're right, though. Gotham did touch on this a lot.
That's always been kind of a background storyline in Batman.
Right,
That's
yeah.
one of the reasons why he has trouble overcoming the crime problem in Gotham is because the corrupt police and the corrupt judges and the corrupt lawyers and the corrupt whatever. So
that's fine. That might have worked. That might have looked great on paper a year ago.
Yeah, it's not the right time for that kind of show.
No, who wants to watch? Who wants to star on it? So yeah, there's a lot of DC stuff that's.
Now I read something else. I don't know if it was attached to this con, but that they are going ahead with a sequel to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? Just let it stand alone.
So they've got so many different realities going on in this DC universe now. You've got, as you just said, Affleck playing Batman. You've got Pattinson playing Batman. And if they do another, and that's separate from the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. And that's, all three of those are separate from the Suicide Squad.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just too confusing.
I think they're trying to corral that together with this Flash movie, with this idea that there's multiverses, which works great in comics because the comic books have been around for years, and you can have your own standalone, Elseworld Batman stories or whatever. But it's a lot. You're asking viewers to really kind of understand how these worlds work together, or don't. And when, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So that's it. That's all my news.
So I'm shocked that you didn't discuss the length of the so-called Snyder Cut, which appears that there's nothing actually cut because it's going to be 4 hours long.
But I thought it would, well, we had talked about this in an earlier episode, which I thought that HBO Max was setting it up as a miniseries. That it would be multiple episodes.
So what they're saying now is that you can watch it as one 4-hour movie, which is like, who do you think you are? You're not Akira Kurosawa. Or you can watch it as like 4 1-hour episodes.
This is going to take Jim a month.
It will. 15 minutes and I'm out.
Whatever. People are excited for it.
Well, they can enjoy that.
Good.
Jim's never seen Suicide Squad. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. Yeah, I've never seen Suicide Squad.
Have you seen Justice League?
Yes, seen Justice League.
You can't unsee it, right?
It's not terrible, but it's not memorable, particularly either.
No.
Wonder Woman is a much better movie than Justice
absolutely.
League.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Wonder Woman 2.
Speaking of which, I've watched the new trailer 3 times already.
I'm trying to stay away. See, because they're dropping a whole bunch of stuff for New Mutants, and I'm like, I waited 3 years without really seeing anything, so I don't want to see the entire movie now. So I've been staying away. I've taken a page out of Jim's book, which is just now watching trailers.
Just shut yourself down as soon as that comes on screen.
Yep. La 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 la. Put my fingers in my ears and off we go. All right, let's go back 50 years. Let's go back to 1970.
Yes. What are we doing first?
I don't know. I would think out of the two that Hercules might be the more fun discussion. Hercules. But it's so bad. I watched it twice.
This is fascinating. This is one of those things where reading the backstory was more interesting than actually watching the movie itself.
Well, it adds to it, so much to it. But like I said before, I guess I didn't realize that this came long before Pumping Iron.
Yeah. Now this is very hard to reconcile because first of all, let me just start. Love Arnold Schwarzenegger, even more so in the past year or so. He's often online with his donkeys, I think.
Oh yeah.
He's got pet donkeys in his kitchen. I had mentioned before this is like a weird time travel type trip to watch this because movies from this era are generally in a brighter than life kind of a Technicolor sheen, which ended, I think, in the early 70s. But this is like a gritty kind of it looks very real, as if, it doesn't look like a 60s movie, which is weird because you're looking at the cars and everything. Okay, this is obviously old, but it's not the kind of 60s movie that I'm used to seeing. And then seeing Arnold in it, who I just so identify the 80s with is like walking around in this. It's just a completely bizarre viewing experience for somebody that's familiar with Arnold already.
Yeah, he looks like the CG version of himself from one of those movies.
And he's only I think I read that he was 21 or 22.
This is 50. This movie's 50 years old, which blows my mind. Both these movies. 19. Wow, Jim, you're old. That was your birthday.
Yes, this was the year that I was born. So he is billed as Arnold Strong in this. And the other guy, Arnold Strang, isn't that his name?
Stang.
Like, how many Arnolds are in this movie?
Yeah, I know. It was weird because, I actually had to dig deep to find the original poster art because it has been subsequently retitled with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because obviously we know who he is now, but at the time, that last name's a mouthful, and they probably were like, well,
was he Mr. Universe at the time?
He was Mr. I don't think it was Universe. It was he only Olympia or Olympus? Maybe. I can't say for sure, but he did have a title.
Right.
He did have a title because he had some clout, but again, like you said, realizing that this was long before Pumping Iron, because you think that is where he stepped onto the stage, which is, he was a bodybuilder, and then someone said, wow, this guy's got a little bit of charisma, let's put him in movies. But no, apparently someone did that long before.
Yeah.
And so the Tubi, so first of all, it's available on Tubi. So go download that app, and there's a plethora of crap on there. And this floats right to the top of the cream. This is some crappy movie. But I was sad because the original screening, the original release of this movie, they dubbed his voice. And we get his original voice in this movie.
Which I was so happy with, because when I queued it up on Tubi, I was expecting a dubbed voice. And when I heard that unmistakable Arnold voice come through, it was, because I was really not looking forward to watching it because of that fact. Okay, I'm going to have to watch this, and he's going to be dubbed. That's like 50% of the joy of watching an Arnold movie is listening to him talk.
You get his original dialogue. And you're like, wait, what did he say? And you're like, now I know why they wanted to dub him. But we also have 50 years of living with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you have a shorthand. I guess there's a point where you're like, oh, I understand him. But there's one scene, and we'll get to it, which they kept the dub voice in.
Which is at the very end, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So this movie is just, like you said, it's like guerrilla style filmmaking, first of all, because it's all shot in New York City, which if I lived and worked in Manhattan for a number of years in the late 80s, early 90s. And if I had been aware of this movie, I probably would have seeked out some of those places where they filmed.
Because even the Mount Olympus is also filmed in New York City.
Yeah, and you can hear car horns in the background.
It looks like they shot it all in the same day because it's overcast in every single scene. Like they just shot all the Mount Olympus scenes in one go. Yeah.
It's the production quality is awful. Yeah, the sound quality is just, like you said, you're supposed to be on Mount Olympus, and yet you're hearing, taxi drivers yell at people right on the other side of the tree line.
And the plot is basically Thor. Arnold is bored being among the gods. He is
Mars gets to travel.
He is the demigod. Yes. I'm bored. And Zeus is getting sick of hearing it.
That guy had a monster head, Zeus. What was going on there?
Did Zeus banish him, or did Arnold just make his way out?
No, he shot him with the bolt of lightning. He banished him.
And then he was in the water. But then he was in the water.
Well, he shot past the Pan Am flight first, because you got the old lady on the plane, and she said, "There's a man. He's outside flying." I'm like, Pan Am. There you go. That right there sets the stage for how old this is.
So there are competent actors in this working around Arnold. It seems like, and he's just completely deadpan, dead-eyed throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, but you see like flashes of who and what he is, because there's one point. So he befriends this little weasel guy, Pretzi, who you might as well just call this Pretzi reacts to Hercules, because the whole movie is just him reacting to whatever Hercules is doing.
Now this
stupid.
Is Arnold Stang. Right,
yes.
Not Strang, Stang. He was the voice of the Honey Nut Cheerios bee for years.
Oh, he was Top Cat.
80s, and Top Cat, yes.
Top Cat. Not only that, he's also Queasy in your Raggedy Ann and Andy movie.
He is? Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
This guy has been acting. He's been doing voiceover work since 1941. The guy died at like 91 years old.
My favorite thing, though, this is one of the few scenes in the movie, because this is billed as a fantasy comedy. But,
it's a comedy, all right.
all the comedy is sort of unintentional.
Yes, correct. I'll wholeheartedly agree with that.
But the one of the funniest scenes in the movie to me is actually the scene when they're in the back of the cab, and Pretzi gives him a pretzel. And Arnold takes the smallest bite of the pretzel imaginable. You know that he's like, carbs. He probably spit it out the window as soon as the take was over.
We gotta do it again. No, one take.
And then he calls it the food of the gods. Like, he didn't even taste.
He goes, that's where I got it, the food of the gods bakery. Like, there's so many stupid throwaway. Yeah. Like, at one point, Pretzi even says, watch your language. And he's like, what do you say? I can hear my talk. I cannot watch it. But yeah, most of the humor is unintentional. So he's a fish out of water. He basically gets banished to New York. He doesn't know what he's doing. Some fishing vessel picks him up. So he's stuck on a boat with a bunch of seamen. He gets into a fight with them on the docks. And I'm like, this is like Popeye. This is like...
But the fights are so awkward. Like, you could tell Arnold is trying not to hurt them. Like,
not to hurt them, yeah.
He's just kind of shoving them in different directions as they're running at him.
Yeah. And then so him and Pretzi saves him. And they get into the cab, but they don't have any money. You got any money? You got any bucks? Bucks? Doughs? Why are we talking about female animals? And that was the most unbelievable part of this whole movie. They went from the lower seaside all the way up into Central Park, and it was only $2. Those were the days, huh?
Those were the days.
Damn.
And I was reading something where part of the reason that they dubbed him over was that, and I don't think he was that bad, because as you said, we have a shorthand now with Arnold and the way he talks, because anybody that watches an Arnold movie throughout the years you're used to hearing his accent. At the time, it was said that he knew so little English that he was reading his lines phonetically. And I don't think that's the case. I think that he knew what he was saying. You know, he wasn't delivering the lines very well, but I don't think that he had such a small
grasp. He wasn't an actor.
He didn't know what he was saying.
Right. You have to wonder. I mean, they obviously cast him just for his physique.
I did also read that whoever produced this was responsible for a lot of those ads that you would read in comic books about the kid getting sand kicked in his face.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it's kind of a commercial for bodybuilding.
Well, then later, right, he turns to wrestling. So, and that there's a weightlift competition. So they did try their best to kind of like shoehorn some of that stuff in there. It's bizarre. It really is just a weird, but he meets this girl. And so, but he has no money, and yet somehow he's wearing a suit at one point. He takes her out to dinner in a carriage ride. He's like, where's he getting this money from?
Yeah, because Pretzi brings him home, and in the next scene, he's wearing the suit.
Right.
It's like, and I know Pretzi doesn't have that size suit just laying around.
And then they're in a hotel. And it's like this Pretzi. There was some really.
Then they take the carriage ride through Central Park, and he fights a bear.
Dude, this bear is almost ridiculous. If you ever watch a Godzilla movie, you're like, that's just a man in a suit. This bear is a guy in boots with a fur jacket on. It is the most worst thing. It is horrible. Oh, that bear. Oh, and he wrestles him. You're right. 3/4 of this is shot in the dark. You don't see the.
Oh, so everyone in my family watched this movie.
And
about 30 minutes in, like, everyone was completely appalled.
I was going to think you were about 30 minutes in. They said that this was the greatest film that they'd ever seen.
No.
I was.
Right before Mercury showed up, my son said, I'm slowly dying inside.
I think that was the intent of the filmmakers. Let's just kill our audience slowly.
And every time Arnold flexed his pecs, I wanted to, like, burn my eyes out. I was like, no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, because they were doing like that low camera angle shooting up, so you made sure you got both those pecs flexing. Oh. And then he had to show off. Like, at one point, he's running around. He's got a cardigan sweater over him. And he wants to show the boys who are out training with the javelin throw and the discus. And every time he took on a new sport, he would take off a piece of clothing. I'm like, this guy's going to be nude in about 10 minutes.
And as a former varsity member of track and field, I would like to say that the field events are ridiculous. He doesn't throw the discus right.
No, correct.
He doesn't take the proper steps for the long jump.
No, that long jump was bad. That was just, oh, man. So beyond the bear. That
And
was
you know what we didn't mention yet is the ever-present Zorba-esque music that's going on.
over the top. Yeah, you can't say enough about this. Either you go along for the ride. It is not a good movie, but it is a very interesting time capsule, as Jim mentioned. That it's just like I couldn't stop watching it to the point, like I said, is I wish I'd known about this a long time ago. I probably would have seen it multiple times. I'm assuming that Mystery Science Theaters had to have had their hands on this.
They haven't. I looked. I was like, I have
this
to.
Is so. Because the thing is that did you read this that the owner and the copyright were sold on eBay back in like 2010?
Really? No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I would love to say I own this movie. Obviously, Arnold wants nothing to do with it. He's
well, no, that's not the case.
Oh no, I read that he truly regrets it.
I read an interview with the director, Arthur Allen Seidelman. So now he's directed countless episodes of 80s TV, like Magnum P.I., Murder, She Wrote, pretty much any CBS TV show he's directed. And he's not done a lot of well-known feature films. This may be the best-known feature film that he's done. I read an interview with the director, and he said Arnold tried very hard, he remembered, during the filming of this, and that he was immediately engaged like radar with any female within a 50-foot radius.
Was he flexing his pecs the whole time? Like,
that's probably why. He's seeing women off camera, right. And that's why he's flexing. And here we go, that in the 90s, the director got a surprise call from Arnold himself. He kind of paraphrases what the call was like. He picks it up, says hello, and he hears on the other end, Seidelman, do you have a poster of our movie? Send it to my office. And he's just so happened to have 2 copies, the original poster for Hercules in New York. He sent one to Arnold, and a poster is up in Arnold's office to this day.
We didn't even talk about the presence of the anthill mob in this movie.
The anthill mob, you are right. That's a good call on that one.
The first thing I thought of.
Get the boys.
When I saw that guy, there's this weird subplot, where Hercules loses his strength and he's now in the employ of gangsters.
Yeah, Pretzi's being strong-armed.
But he seems to have exactly the same abilities from when he loses his strength to before.
Yeah,
except
it wasn't
that
like
that one thing is he can't lift the weight, but he's still beating guys up left
and they never.
Right.
So they're 3 different attempts at the different weights, but the weights never changed. That was a weird.
And did anybody else catch that Mr. Pathmark is in this?
Mr. Pathmark? I don't.
The father of the romantic interest, the father of the girl, played Mr. Pathmark throughout the 70s and 80s in many New York area commercials for Pathmark.
No, I didn't know. I wouldn't know that one.
He's in Poltergeist, which is what I recognized him from. Yes. I was like, I know who that guy is. He's just one of those character actors that was in a ton of stuff.
I did like the Flintstone car skids when the chariot was going through the grass. It was like,
and again, the gangsters were chasing them, and they were in like a station wagon, and I was like, oh, that's when I thought of the anthill mob. I was like, it's Wacky Races.
Nice. Yeah.
And did Mercury arrive by helicopter? He steps out of a helicopter, right? He chartered one from Mount Olympus and then came down to New York.
Yeah, there you go. It was like Loki.
Yeah, and I loved how all the effects take place off camera.
Just a flash
of light. When Mercury flies out the window and Pretzi, he went out the window. He flew right up. I tell you.
Yeah, we can't show you that, but he did. We're telling you.
Believe me.
We're telling you that's what he did. But yeah, we talked about the fact that in the original theatrical version, it was dubbed. And at the very end of the movie, Pretzi gets a transmission on his AM radio.
Because it's kind of sad, because they're at the top of the Empire State Building, and Hercules is Pretzi's only friend in life.
Yeah.
And Pretzi's just so happy to have him, and then he turns around and he's gone. But you're kind of heartbroken for the guy.
Yeah, because what he's going to do? I think Hercules stiffed him on that hotel bill.
But as Jeff alluded to, even though Arnold's voice is back in the version that you can see on Tubi, they did not reinstate it, or maybe they never even recorded it.
Maybe not, yeah.
Because Hercules talks to Pretzi through the radio and says that he will be there whenever he needs him.
Yeah, he's like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just call my name 3 times in the mirror.
Right.
And...
Anytime you want me, I'll be there.
Call my name 3 times in the mirror, so it's Candyman?
Oh, don't go down that road again.
Just don't say Candyman. Say Hercules. Hercules.
I love the fact that Hercules is really not even a Greek god. He's a Roman god.
No, he's Greek. Heracles is the Greek name.
Heracles is the Greek one?
That was actually something that was really annoying me, was that they used the Greek name for Zeus. Right? And they used the Roman name for Hera, which is Juno.
Well, even Mercury. Isn't Mercury Greek?
And they
should have been Hermes.
They used a bunch of different, like, they mixed up the Greek and the, but I guess they don't care.
No, apparently.
I guess they're like, whatever.
And can we assume that Zeus is going to come down to make some more illegitimate children, and that's why he's coming?
He's gonna start with that old lady on the Pan Am flight.
That's all Zeus does, really.
That's all Zeus does.
Greek myths.
When we get into our next movie, apparently that's what Thomas O'Malley's about to do as well. So
we didn't even give buckets to Hercules yet.
So we give this buckets. I didn't even write down.
So I don't even know. I can't imagine it's playing in theaters. I couldn't get any box office information whatsoever. So who knows if it even played in more than 1 or 2 theaters.
I don't know. It's something you have to just see for yourself. I'll give it 3 just because I was wildly entertained by the spectacle of it all. It is not a good movie by any means. As Christina points out, all the funny stuff is very unintentional. It's not meant to be funny, but it is.
I'll probably go 2.5. And that's all just Arnold himself and the time capsule aspect of it.
Okay, so you guys are like super generous to this movie.
I am on this one. I want people to see it for themselves. It's free. You don't have to rent it. You don't have to do anything.
Before I give my buckets, I want to express that, first of all, I think I had like PTSD or something, because the next morning I actually forgot that I had watched it. It was like my brain tried to block out the experience and protect me from it. I consider like Condor Man to be a low point.
Oh no, it's lower than Condor Man.
It's bad when you speak the words Condor Man.
And I'm going to say, though, that this is slightly more coherent than Condor Man. Okay. But
that's a rave review right there, folks.
But not a lot more. So I'm going to give it 3/4 of a bucket because it was short.
Can we get into kernels if it's like below buckets?
Unpopped kernels, yeah.
My son, who's normally even more generous than anybody, my son's always like, Mom, up the buckets. This is really good. He gave this 0 buckets.
Nice. Wow.
If my son is giving you 0 buckets, I don't know. And you need to rethink your technique.
Well, he did. He obviously did. He just went upwards and onwards from Hercules in New York.
Yeah. Listen, it's something. I'm glad we watched it. I'm sorry I forced you guys to watch it, but
let's go to our concession stand, and we'll be right back.
Wear your masks.
We're now just 1 minute away from the beginning of our next feature. For your convenience, our refreshment stand will remain open after the feature begins, so you still have time to add to the fun of watching the movie. Before we begin our next feature, we'd like to remind you to replace your speaker before leaving the theater. If it is accidentally damaged, please notify someone at the refreshment stand. Again, thank you for coming out to the drive-in tonight. As you leave, please drive carefully and come back soon.
Okay, we're back, and our second feature from the year 1970 is The Aristocats.
Which is on Disney Plus, by the way.
Which is on Disney Plus. I watched the DVD because I was planning on watching the special features after the film.
Was there a lot of special features?
Not a lot. No, there wasn't.
Yeah, I was going to say that Disney's miserly with some of that stuff, that old school.
But my DVD was from around 2000, so it has that fast play option that you used to get in the Disney DVDs. And it had something called the Disney Scrapbook, which a lot of those era DVDs featured, where it's just pictures that you can page through, and it gives you a little explanation. So, there was a lot of storyboards. There was a lot of photos of the people actually recording the vocals, and then photos of the premiere and some of the merchandising as well. So it was fun to go through.
That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, on the whole, I don't know how much of that older stuff that they've saved, like in terms of, you'd think there would be more, because there's so much behind the scenes stuff, like for Disney World and Disneyland and all that stuff. But there's certain, if you're the kind of person who's interested in background features, special features, the Jungle Book DVD has a ton.
Yes.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they were really cranking stuff out in the 70s there. And maybe they just didn't have time to archive a lot of that. They just
yeah. I mean, I think part of it too is so Jungle Book was Walt's last animated film. So 1970, like The Aristocats, this is now like the post-Walt era.
Although this was the last one that he approved. He didn't oversee it.
Right. And to me, it's very, very, Wolfgang Reitherman directed it. To me, it's very, very typical of the Reitherman style. If like you think of something like Sword in the Stone or Robin Hood, it's very, very typical of the kinds of movies that Reitherman made, where there's a lot of kind of slapstick. One thing that I've noticed, because a lot of these prints have now been cleaned up for digital, is you see a ton of like pencil artifacts. And
I love that. That
what
whole
that
era.
Is? That's that Xerox method. Because, and I was reading about this. They incorporated that style from 101 Dalmatians onwards throughout the 70s.
You see a lot in Robin Hood.
Because Sleeping Beauty was the last classic clean.
They rotoscoped a lot of that stuff too, right?
And it cost so much to do it in that way, and Sleeping Beauty didn't make a lot of money. It was a box office disappointment. So they were looking to cut costs. So this Xerox method was, it took the artist's drawings and put them directly on animation cells. It cut out the inker completely.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Nice going. But to me, it's almost like you're peering behind, the storyboard a little bit. You're seeing that underdrawing, and maybe just because I grew up watching these movies, Robin Hood especially, I love that look and feel. Yeah, but as Christina was saying, you're seeing like pencil lines appear, then disappear. It's like a very it's not like the Tarzan, Little Mermaid, very clean look that we get now. And it's really evident on Madame whenever she's on, like in her white hair. You're seeing like all these like cloudy poofs in her hair. Then they're gone. Then they're there. Then they're gone. Yep. And also, like a hallmark of this era, I think there's a lot of human reference going on. Even the scene with the little motorcycle, you could tell that was a real motorcycle animated over. But the film itself is the 20th full-length Disney animated feature, released in December of 1970. So it's a Christmas release, and a lot of the promotional material hangs around Christmas theming. Yeah. That I saw. Simple story. It's takes place 1910, Paris. It's an old cat lady, an old rich cat lady, Madame, who has Duchess and her 3 kittens. And who their real father is, we don't know. It's never alluded to. No, we don't dig too deep into that one. And it turns out that Madame is going to leave her vast fortune to the cats. The butler, Edgar, is very upset by this because he's expecting to be in the will, and he is, but only after the cats die. But he didn't really think this through at all. No, he did not. This is not, and this movie made me like not trust butlers from no Mr. Belvedere, no Mr. French, not even Rosie the Robot. I mean, because what are the cats going to spend money on? He's still going to be the steward. He's still going to live in this mansion. He's still going to be right. All right, so I buy you some salmon or some high-end cat litter, but oh, that steak, that's for me. Maybe you'll get some gristle. Then he's going into all these calculations. 3 cats, 9 lives, 12 years. I'm not going to be around. The youngest one is going to be dead in 12 years, and then you'll have all the money. Oh, yeah. And it's like she was going to die like the next day. Like, I got to get rid of these cats now. What if she just went out and got new
why
cats?
didn't he wait until she was dead to do this?
Right.
Then he would have the money, no problem.
Not only, well, all right, so let's get into it, because, the butler was
The
not
butler
very
did
bright.
it.
The butler did do it, sorry. Didn't mean to, spoiler alert. So the weird thing is that I know I saw this in the theater. This is one of those Disney movies I know for a fact I saw in the theater. But
well, how old were you?
I only would have been 3 years old, because it was released in 70, and then it was not released again until 1980.
Right.
Theatrically. And I know for a fact it wasn't 80. So I'm like, how is it that I remember this so vividly at 3 years old?
You know what's funny is that when I was a kid, this I would say would rank among my top 5 Disney movies, and that was expressly because I had the book and record.
I
had the
Robin Hood
storybooks
for me. That was Robin Hood for me, which came out in
I'd never
73.
seen the movie until its 1980 re-release.
Yeah.
So, but I knew the story so much, and there's so many iconic images, like when O'Malley jumps on the milk truck and his hair is all standing on end with his green eyes, or when Edgar is fighting with all the animals and there's that scene where he freezes and there's cats on every single limb.
Oh, yeah.
That was a direct picture from one of those books that I had.
Gotcha.
I remember. I was always a cat person more so than a dog person. So I just kind of gravitated to this movie. But watching it now, I will admit it's probably among the lower tier of Disney movies in terms of ranking, and the story is very simple, basic. There's not a lot of emotional heft to it like there is with a lot of the other Disney animations.
No, you never really feel like these cats are in mortal danger. Although Marie, the little girl, like, she just becomes a liability. She's falling off the truck. She's falling off the bridge. It's like, just let her go. You can make another one. You got 2 more. You got 2 more cats.
I love Lafayette and Napoleon.
Yes.
The 2 dogs.
The 2 dogs.
Yes.
Who are the same voice actors who played the sheriff and Trigger in
and
Robin
Hood. Well, yeah, so we didn't even talk about the voice actors, because Ava Gabor and Pat Buttram were both on Green Acres at the time of this was made, and she's obviously Duchess, and he was Napoleon. So
right,
and we got Phil Harris,
right,
Baloo.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny about Phil Harris, and he does this in the Jungle Book as well, it's kind of like your embarrassing dad trying to talk hip, to...
Well, Thomas O'Malley's got a little more street smarts, I think, than Baloo does, but it's basically the same character. But Sterling Holloway, who plays Rockfort, he was the original Winnie the Pooh for years.
Yeah, and that was right in the middle of all the Winnie the Pooh shorts that were coming out.
And Paul Winchell, who plays the racist Chinese cat.
That was unfortunate. I winced when that part came on. Thankfully, he's not on long.
But he's Tigger. He's Tigger. I think he's still Tigger, maybe.
It's interesting because if you watch it on Disney Plus, there's a note that says, this program contains outdated cultural depictions.
That's fair. Like, if you want to give me heads up, you can't do that. You got to do it to all of them, Dumbo.
Well, it's not
the damn
just
crows.
And it's not just the Asian cat. I mean, I'll tell you that as a person who's 75% Italian, the depiction of Italians in most of these movies is not great either. So, and there's an Italian cat.
About,
Exactly, because we all talk like that.
Yeah, and the scat cat.
I mean, the scat cat is the only one that's not completely offensive, actually, of the group. Right. He's still less offensive even than like the Russian cat, But
I loved him because it was Thurl Ravencroft, who's the voice you can hear in the Haunted Mansion, of course.
I was just going to bring that up, that he did multiple voices in a lot.
But I loved the hippie cat. He was always my favorite from the storybook when I was a kid. The one with the beads and the shades.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy hearing Scatman Crothers and Phil Harris sing together. I mean, that part is divine.
The song, there's only a handful of songs in this, but they are like, they're earworms.
But what's funny is that the Sherman Brothers didn't do all the songs. They only did the title song, which is
The Aristocat.
Maurice Chevalier. They brought him out of retirement for it. And I think one other, but my 2 favorites are the Thomas O'Malley cat song, which is Phil Harris, and then Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, which is the one most everybody knows from this movie.
Yeah, and it just builds. It's a beautiful crescendo of that song. I mean, that's, again, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. I don't own it. Maybe I do. Maybe I have it on VHS for the kids back in the day, but I may have had the record as well. I don't know, but I do, I look back on this fondly. I thought the transfer was really nice. It's short. Like you said, there's really no weight to it whatsoever. This is like the first male cat she encountered, and she's like, yeah, I'll hang out with you.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that Duchess, this takes place in Paris. Duchess is the only one besides Madame and the human characters, well, not even Edgar, that has a French accent. Everybody is from every other point on the globe except for France.
I don't really. I mean, Edgar was Hungarian, so I don't really think she's really doing. And she's trying to get some.
She's trying.
I think
more so than the dogs.
3-year-old
More
kid,
so than the dogs
the
are doing.
Yeah.
The dogs are from the bayou.
Yes, the dogs are from a different movie.
Yeah. And what were the geese?
They said that they were on holiday from England. That actually was explained why they had an English accent.
Yeah, but then they had the Uncle Waldo, who was a wino.
And when my son was young, that was his favorite scene, was the wino goose.
So I didn't understand that. The cook threw him out because he was belligerent. That's like, I'm not going to cook
because
you.
He was trying to make him. He was like marinating him in white wine. He basted. He goes, basted. You're marinated in it.
When Walt first greenlit it in the mid 60s, it was originally meant to be a 2-part television story, to be on the wonderful world of color.
Right.
But then as time went on, it became slated to be the next feature after The Jungle Book. And there weren't many. I was surprised. I was looking at the animated films that came out in the 70s, and there's like 3 or 4, and that was it. They really went into live action during the 70s, maybe because of budgetary reasons. I don't know, because we had Aristocats, we had Robin Hood in 73, Rescuers in 77, and then they cut together a Winnie the Pooh movie out of the shorts that they made in the late 60s.
Rescuers from 77?
77.
77. And that was Ava Gabor as well.
And Buddy Hackett, right?
Buddy Hackett was the seagull. Bob Newhart was the other, her companion mouse.
Okay.
So, and then I think it was years later they came out with The Rescuers Down Under, which is pretty solid. It's a pretty solid movie. Yeah, pretty solid.
I think you really do start to see a change after Walt's death. I mean, there's less of an emphasis on animation, but also they were building Walt Disney World at that time. You know, that was like Walt's big project that he never got to oversee before he died. And Roy is now overseeing Walt Disney World in Florida, and the animation studio really goes by the wayside because they're not really cultivating young animators the way they had previously.
Yeah. And by then, a lot of the 9 old men, 10 old men.
9 old men.
Yeah,
right.
I think there at this point there was only like 6 that worked on this,
and the director was one of them.
Yeah,
Reitherman was one of them.
Yeah. So it was like an end of an era.
And to your point, Christina, as I on one of the features, the Sherman brothers said that this was the last animated film that they worked on until the Tigger movie because they were unhappy with the way the studio was going after Walt's death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was definitely like a transition period. I've watched a ton of stuff about the history of the company and like how, you know, obviously like I read the Walt Disney biography, and there's a lot that changes after Walt's death because you're missing that
art.
He was really good at bringing the best out of people and motivating people to do more. You know, and I think that when you lose that guiding force, even if you've worked under him, which obviously all the 9 old men had been with him, you know, almost from the start, it was really hard to get that back. And now there's like stockholders saying do this or that, and you know, there's like this whole other like
it's not done for the art of it. It's now a corporation. It's now a business.
And what Jim was talking about, how the movie doesn't seem to have heft, well, that makes sense if you think about it in terms of like a 2-parter that's going to be on TV. It's a minor diversion, you know, but it's not like the way Walt thought about animated films, where every film he was like, let's do more, let's innovate, let's do this, let's do that. And all of the animated films that Walt oversees have like a beautiful emotional arc. in them.
Yeah. The original storyline to this was going to be Duchess trying to get her kittens adopted to people that were matched with each of them. And that's why they have separate abilities, the kittens. One paints, one plays the piano. So that would have been
Cultured.
a much more emotional movie, I think, of her breaking with her kittens and sending them off.
Did you read that this was actually based on a true story?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Like somebody catnapped cats that were going to get
there was an evil butler that would try to
Did they come back?
Cats.
Did they get the
I
money?
don't know. I didn't read more. I was hoping maybe you'd done doing homework.
No, I didn't know. I didn't read that.
But you talk about like the album and knowing these movies inside and out, even if you maybe only saw it once at 3 years old. But I was always fascinated because Phil Harris, first, like he's just that voice. The minute you hear that voice, Pat Buttram, when you hear these voices. And so, like as a kid, like these guys would show up from time to time, like on sitcoms, or they'd show up on like say F Troop or whatever. And I was always fascinated that's Tigger. That's the guy who plays Tigger. And it just, because you didn't, unless you watch like Disney on Sundays and you got that little behind the scene of the guy recording, the voice or whatever, it was always a disconnect. So I always in love with that when I saw these guys like out in the wild, like the real person. It was always like fascinated me as a kid.
A very fun fact with this, when it was first slated to be a TV project, they were trying to get Boris Karloff to be Edgar, and it never came to be. And then later on, when they switched it over to a feature, there was going to be a maid character who was in cahoots with Edgar, and that was going to be voiced by Elsa Lanchester. So at various points, they had Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein involved.
I think another conspirator would have just cluttered up the story.
Yeah, that's what they thought. So that's why they dropped the maid. At the time of its release, it was the 18th highest grossing movie in France ever. Wow. Ever. Hey, not just in 1970.
We're being represented.
And it made $10 million in the U.S. on its initial release. I don't know what that translates to modern dollars, but over its other two releases in 80 and 87, I think it's made a total of $58 million in the theaters alone. Who knows how much in DVD sales?
Right. That's probably where you got most of your money.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Louis Armstrong, who was originally set. They wanted him he was supposed to voice Scat Cat, and then he was too ill to do the voice. So they brought in Scatman Crothers and basically told him to do a Louis Armstrong impersonation.
But he's Scatman, you can't not.
Oh, I know.
Scatman, right?
He's Hong Kong Phooey to me.
And on the DVD, they have photos from the Hollywood premiere from December 1970, and Scatman Crothers performed at that premiere.
Oh, cool.
So I can only assume he did the Everybody Wants to Be a Cat number. Yeah.
It is one of my favorite Disney songs, by the way.
It is a good one.
You can't help but just get invested.
I was singing that to myself since I watched this yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's
I was washing the dishes at the sink and
you want to be a cat. And those little kittens, man, they partied hardy. No wonder why they crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I like watching it. No,
any Disney movie,
like
really.
It's true. I feel like sometimes I can just put them on and like have them on in the background, even just while I'm doing something else.
Yeah, but we will get to Robin Hood. Oh, we will.
I love Robin Hood.
I am such a huge reader. It is probably my right after Lilo and Stitch probably falls right behind it, but.
Hey, these were for us because these are the movies that were coming out when we were kids. And again, as you said, Robin Hood, I had the books, I had the records.
I mean, I didn't see the Aristocats in the theater, obviously, because that would have been impossible. But, I was born in 1974. But my mom especially always took us to whatever re-releases came out. So anything that was re-released, I saw in the theater. So I know that I saw the Aristocats during the 1980 re-release.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what kind of buckets would we give to the Aristocats?
Well, I gave 3 to Hercules, so I got to go at least 3.5.
You got to go up.
I got to go 3.5.
3.5?
Hercules could not beat this one.
If you asked me when I was 5 years old, I would tell you 5 buckets.
5 buckets. 5
buckets. But no, at this point, I would say 3, solid 3 for the Aristocats.
Yeah, agreed. Like it's it's a fun movie to watch, but it's not the first thing you think of. At least I do. It's not the first thing I think of when I say, oh, I want to watch a Disney movie.
Right, yeah.
So that leads us to our confessional this week.
Confessionals.
What was our confessional?
What was our confessional?
Jeez, this was a late night. This was a late night binging of the Ancient Aliens for me, and the fact that these movies were 50 years old. Sometimes you look at this and you're like, 50 years ago. Damn, I'm old. Because I know for a fact I saw this in the theater. I was only 3, but still. So the confessional idea was basically, if you could travel through time, simple question, would you go forward in time or would you go back in time?
Is your question.
And why?
Yeah.
When and why?
I'd like to know your answer.
Do you have a guess?
Because
I've actually had this discussion with my mother one day, and she was very surprised at my answer. Because I guess she just always assumed because I was like into Star Wars and all this stuff, I want to go into the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know. I want to go back in time, and a lot of it has to do with I come home and it's late. It's 9:30, 10 o'clock. By the time I shower, I get something to eat. I just want something mindless to put on TV, and I always find myself on the History Channel watching Ancient Aliens or friggin' and I get sucked into it. But I tie it back. It must have been mid-'70s. Chariots of the Gods was a book that I picked up at a rummage sale. And it blew my mind, the idea that maybe aliens had something to do with the building of the pyramids. And of course, now, you watch these shows and it's like, it's obvious. Spaceships painted into the landscape. There's painted in Renaissance paintings. There's sculptures. There's aliens everywhere. So, but I'd like to know one way or the other if we were influenced. I'd like to think that, we don't know everything about this planet. But
so it would be specifically the building of the pyramids.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that took place over a long period. So it's not like I can go drop on that day. Aliens came down. Could
your answer be like multiple time periods? Could you skip
I would
to
have
Stonehenge?
Because you want to go You want to go to like the Mayan temples because obviously there's a lot of crossover, even though they were separated by thousands of miles. Yeah, I would have to at least go back to early Egyptian, to Genesis of who decided that we should build these and it should replicate the belt of Orion. Oh, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. I'll pick that. Day one, the first, setting down the cornerstone of the pyramid. I'll work.
Because I guess you can kind of play fast and loose with the criteria here. Because if I chose to go back during my lifetime, like, would I be me now? Would I be me then?
Just don't meet yourself.
If I go back to 1976, would I be 5 years old, or would I be like me now and experiencing life? Because mine isn't as esoteric as yours, and I feel embarrassed to say this, but like I'd go back to like buy a rare album or something.
Yeah, there you go. Just hit the friggin' store. End of 77, early 78, when all the Star Wars figures dropped.
Yeah.
And give me one of each. Give me that damn vinyl Jawa. I'm happy.
Just take it all off, and like I'd have like a laundry basket and just take them all off but I was thinking more specifically, I'd go back to 1966 and buy that Beatles, the Butcher cover, where they're all covered in doll parts and simulated meat. And that was for the Yesterday and Today cover, and they pasted over. The record company was so offended by the image, they pasted it over with a nice clean cut image.
Is that like a highly sought after album now?
Yes, it is. And a lot of collectors who have the clean version will actually steam the cover off to see if the Butcher cover is underneath it. That's a possibility. I'd go back probably to watch the Ziggy Stardust show from 1972 is my second choice. But I'd want to come back with something tangible, I think. So maybe going back to the first Superman or Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy, yes.
Now listen, I've gotten back into buying comic books, and there's a 4.0 graded Amazing Fantasy that sits at about $40,000. Grab 2, please.
I will.
Go back.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a germaphobe, as we discussed earlier, I am not going back to any time when
cholera,
when smallpox exists.
Black Plague.
I would want to go in the future.
Ooh,
okay. The past is the past, so I don't need to know anything about the past. I mean, I want to go into the future, and I want to go into the far future. I want to see like where the planet is like 3,000 years from now, or
It's a long
4,000
time in the
years from now.
future. I don't think we'll be on this planet in 3,000
No,
years.
I agree that I think that nature's going to figure out a way to wipe us out, because that's what happens if you look at the history.
Look at all the animal uprising in the 3 months that we were locked down. You know, this Earth is
Well,
going to reclaim itself in no time. Yeah.
well, it's just the natural order of things, right? So like there's been like what, 6 great extinctions already, like
Oh, we're
throughout
due for one.
throughout
Yeah.
history, and the dominant species always falls. It doesn't mean that there won't be people, but I don't think we'll be the dominant species anymore. I'm curious to know
Will the
where
whales
we
be
go.
our overlords?
Or will we have left this planet?
We're on the axiom out there somewhere.
You know, I'm very curious to know where we would go in the future. So I would want to go into the far future and see what's happened. Yeah.
But then once you're there, you'd want to go in the past to find out how we got there. And
Jeff.
you know what? Now that I think about it, I can't stand the heat. So why would I want to go back to freaking Egypt? Although, if you listen, you know, you believe that
Stonehenge, right? Stonehenge is
I've been to Stonehenge. I've been there. I don't need to help hoof those stones. You know what I forgot to bring up in the Aristocats? There's that scene where they get dumped when Edgar drops them in the basket, and they're in Toulouse gets scared by the frog.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, he should be afraid, because that video you showed us of the frog trying to eat the duck. I'm like, that frog's going to eat that kitten.
That was the craziest thing
I have
I've
shown
ever
that video.
seen.
I have shown that video to so many people. I mean, here we are. We're talking about this video. Christina's out jogging one day, and she comes across this frog who's stalking a little baby duck, and he actually jumps at him. He's licking his chops and everything. He's going in for the kill.
I watched that frog. I was running, you know, it's on like a boardwalk that goes around Lincoln Park. It's outside of Lincoln Park Zoo. And there's a pond there. And I saw the duckling first, because the duckling caught my eye. It's very, very small for this late in the season. Usually they're a lot bigger. Yeah. It's like the size of a tennis ball still, you know, it's a very tiny duckling. And then I noticed the frog in the water, and I was like, that frog is watching that duckling. So I stopped and I watched it, and I'm like, that frog is definitely stalking
him. He was slowly creeping up, and man, he was going on. Wow.
I mean, I watched it for like 3 minutes, and then I turned on the video, and I was like, I gotta, like, you know, send this to my dad, because this is crazy. And then he jumped toward the duck.
You gasped. You actually gasped.
I did.
When he jumped.
Because I was like, I couldn't believe he went for it.
Right. Did I just witness this? This is like an evolutionary step where, you know what, we're not going to take these bugs anymore. We're going after the fuzzy critters.
And all I could think was, what is this frog going to do, even if he gets a hold of the duck?
Yeah, it's not like he's a snake where he could slowly digest this duck.
No.
And
bizarre.
Distend his mouth to actually take it inside.
I spent a fair amount of time out in the woods, and I've never seen anything like that. That was just crazy.
My dad was like, that was a once in a lifetime thing that you know, he's like, did you film this? I'm like, yes, I filmed it.
Yeah. Nat Geo on the phone.
Yeah.
Did you go back out there? Carnivorous frogs on the loose. Chicago's falling apart.
Yeah, right. Like, we're experiencing evolution right here.
Yeah. Hey, there's that American International movie called Frogs, which seems like a ridiculous setup.
Oh yes, but
it's not so much. Not so much
now. No. So there you go. That was an episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But next week, big news.
Oh man, I am so excited.
We have been building up to this for I don't know how long.
I don't know who really thought that we were going to see New Mutants before Mulan.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Nobody saw this coming. And like Jim said, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We're still days away.
I got tickets on my phone.
We're doing two. We're not only doing New Mutants. We're doing 2 brand new features next week.
This is unprecedented.
Mainly because there's just a glut of movies coming out. We've got to get these off of our schedule so we can open it up for your Mulan and your Tenet.
And we're hoping that people are going to go and see this so they can listen to the review, because we tend to spoil things. So I don't know if, who out there listens to us even though they've not seen the movie.
Right.
I know I have some friends who are like, oh, I haven't seen that movie yet, so I haven't listened to your episode, which I think is just a go-to so they can get away from saying I don't listen to you. So, but that's fair enough.
So besides New Mutants, we're going to be watching the new Bill and Ted movie. New Mutants, Bill and Ted next week. So come on back and listen.
So what I find funny, which is the New Mutants tagline is face your demons. And then Bill and Ted is face the music.
The music.
So we not only face demons, but the music. We'll see who wins. We're the winners. That's all I'm saying right now. We are the winners. And maybe
unless you get
as well,
somebody coughing into the theater behind you. Like,
well, we're going to come back with a full
then
review.
We're not the winners. Then we're not the winners.
We're putting our lives on the line to let you people know if it's safe or not. I mean, obviously Christine and her family have been out, but going to an IMAX is slightly different than the Music Box, I think.
Yeah, I'm also curious to see how it is at the Regal, just because like I said, yes, I've been going to movie. I saw Relic at the movie theater. You guys had to watch it in VOD, and the Music Box has been so safe. I really feel safe there. I wish I could see every movie there, but they only have 2 screens, so
they can build you a third.
It's not possible.
And it's funny because I am very comfortable going back to my theater. I'm now jumping over state lines to go. I feel like we're doing this illegally. It's like I'm gonna have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
I know they're gonna stop us at the border between Connecticut and New York.
Mutants. Yeah, you're gonna have to go.
Yeah, we thought so. Come on.
Yeah. So there you go. That was fun. I know that Hercules in New York was not favorable to this group, but
we make it fun. Even our treading water episodes are fun.
If you have access to Tubi, check it out.
Thank you for coming back to 1970 with us.
All right, kids. Always a pleasure. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Ciao, bella.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Step over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
It's like Hollywood Squares. Paul Lynn for the win, please.